رویس که در سال 1993 وارد کنگره آمریکا شد، همکنون 11مین دوره خود را به عنوان نماینده طی می‌کند. وی از ژانویه سال 2013 ریاست کمیته امور خارجی کنگره را بر عهده گرفت. رویس از مدافعان اعمال تحریم‌ها علیه رژیم آخوندی در کنگره آمریکا و از بانیان مشترک لایحه‌ای درباره کاهش تهدید رژیم ایران و نقض حقوق بشر توسط رژیم سوریه بود که در پی تصویب آن و با حمایت او مقام‌های رژیم آخوندی که در زمینه سانسور فعالیت دارند با مسدود شدن دارایی‌ها و ممنوعیت سفر هدف قرار گرفتند.
First, let me say about the horrible massacre last September at Camp Ashraf, how much the people in this room tried to act to prevent that from happening. Let me say also that the way in which a country treats its own people, whether it is Iraq turning a blind eye to the machinations out of Iran or Iran itself, tells you a lot about how it's going to treat its neighbors. And I wanted to speak for a moment about the way recently we saw Iran react to a very cruel type of conduct from the besieged. When acid is thrown in the face of young women because it's your idea of how to enforce Sharia law, you do not expect the reaction of the parliament of that state to be to pass legislation that says if you're enforcing Sharia law, if that's what you believe you're doing, you're indemnified against the consequences of your action. Now think for a minute the consequences of sending that message in a society as radicalized, as dangerous as we've seen the conduct of these young men before. I watched them, you can just turn back and see clips of them riding motorcycles with a steel rod up against students or up against women and using that rod as a weapon. We've stood by and watched as those young radicalized males were empowered, those misled young men were empowered by a regime which has unleashed terror on its own people. I believe that as we've watched the conduct of that regime, not just the way it treats its neighbors, but more importantly, as I said, the way in which it treats its own women, the way in which it's treating its students, the way in which the next generation is being deprived of hope because of the absolutism, the fanaticism that we see emanating out of the regime. All I can say is a thank you to those who continue to work in order to make certain that there's hope for the next generation, that young people inside Iran have access to information and news about what is actually happening. I saw the results of that poll taken by the Gallup organization that shows that 2/3 of the people inside Iran want a Western-style democracy without a theocracy. And I think also it speaks volumes of the gullibility of many of us in the West, around the world, on this subject of what the Ayatollah will do with a nuclear weapons program if he gets undetectable nuclear breakout capability. 4 times now, they have been caught cheating. The most recent story you can pick up yesterday in the paper about the attempt to purchase parts for a heavy water for a plutonium reactor. This comes on the heels of the R&D on a new generation of supersonic centrifuges at the very time that they're in negotiations. You know, they used to say your word is your bond. Well, the word apparently is not a bond in terms of the negotiations here. We have a special responsibility to the people at Camp Ashraf, and that needs to be met. Thank you for calling upon us, as we have called in my committee upon the administration, to do right by the victims. Let's come to their aid. Thank you very much for your continued endeavor.